Good day. In this video, I will talk about how I came to completely wrong conclusions in an important situation for me. This experience applies to the Mandela effect, a phenomenon in which many people have memories that contradict the real facts. You may know from my other videos that in my 20s, my life became connected with Michel Demarquet's book Thiaoouba Prophecy, and a few years ago I made its official translation into Russian. Without going into too much unnecessary details, after the publication of his book, Michel met a man named Tom Chalko, who helped Michel a lot with his book. But, as it turned out, not everything was as it seemed. One day it became known that Tom had blatantly lied on his website's question and answers page about his involvement with Michel. Tom wrote that after Michel Demarquet's return to Earth from Thiaoouba, Michel had only 2 personal contacts with Sala, through the astral method, no physical contact. Then Tom writes that, allegedly, in the first such contact, Sala showed Michel his last 80s life, which he was not shown on Thiaoouba. It's a lie. Michel clearly states in his book that he saw scenes from all 80 of his previous lives. And I'll remind you that not only did Michel start writing the book right after he got home, but Salo also helped him with the details. He had to remember how many lives he was shown on Thiaoouba. Moreover, if he had been shown 79 lives instead of 80, then there would certainly have been a mention of this in his book. After all, this is a very important detail. Why is Tom doing this? I don't have a definitive answer, but there are certain hunches that have been confirmed by a person who was also closely associated with Michel. Tom pretends to be Michel's friend, while in reality they had quarreled in the 2000s, and Michel Demarquet didn't want anything to do with Tom. And he communicated with him only when Tom illegally published translations of Michel's book on his website. After that, all those translations were removed from the website. If we read what Tom writes further on his page, then we see that, allegedly, after the second personal contact with Sala, Michel called Tom with joy and pride. I believe that Tom's idea was to show people that he can be trusted, since Michel allegedly trusted him enough to share with him the most intimate news from his personal life. It's also interesting to note that Tom calls the book Thiaoouba the Golden Planet, which was originally called Abduction to the Ninth Planet, and also Thiaoouba Prophecy, Mission, and that he is supposedly responsible for it. In reality, the copyright is currently held by Michel's son, Peter, with whom I entered into an agreement to translate the book called Thiaoouba the Golden Planet into Russian. Also, it will be known later that Tom probably has a contract that allows him to translate Thiaoouba Prophecy into Polish language. As far as I know, Michel Demarquet originally wanted to call his book Thiaoouba the Golden Planet, but the publicists had their own ideas about the title of the book. Eventually, the book ended up with the title that Michel wanted. I've never heard of Michel's book being called Mission, if we talk about the English titles of the book. But as far as I know, this is the name of the Polish translation of the book, which was done by Tom. So, I don't have the best opinion of Tom now that I've seen him without the rose-colored glasses. Then I was very tired from lack of sleep over the past months since the beginning of the special operation in Ukraine. I had a lot of important things to do, and at about the same time, bed bugs appeared in my apartment, who were very difficult to get rid of due to various factors. There was a time when I got very nervous because I could not get rid of them. Also, I had done almost everything that I could for that to happen. It was a mistake to let my emotions get out, because it caused my heart problems to reappear. Loneliness also played a role in my mental state. So, one day I saw in our Facebook admin conference over Thiaoouba Prophecy XP group a screenshot of Tom's letter, which I quickly read with my eyes, and due to my sleepy and tired state, as well as the expectations I had about Tom based on my previous experience, I clearly saw his writings say that he was the sole owner of the copyright and no one else. I was so convinced of this that I asked Peter Demarque to confirm again in writing that Peter was the copyright holder of his father's books, and he did. I posted the screenshots of both Tom's and Peter's letters in our group, and what a surprise it was for me when people began to write to me that both letters say, in fact, the same thing. The reality I thought I knew turned out to be different. I was surprised when I opened the old unedited screenshot I have saved as evidence and saw what was actually said in Tom's email. He wrote that Peter was the sole owner of the copyright. I slowly reread that message several times. So strongly I believed that there was other information in it. But to be honest, Tom is not quite right in his next sentences, because I have a contract with Peter that allows me to translate Thiaoouba into Russian and publish this translation. And as I was told, Tom only has an agreement to publish the Polish translation of the book. It seems to me he might be trying to overstate his role regarding Michelle's book again. However, the fact remains. I blamed the man for something he didn't actually do. And all because I didn't read the message carefully. And my brain filled in the gaps with information that seemed logical based on my expectations. I would soon realize that I've experienced what is directly related to the Mandela effect, and I made a huge note from this experience. I should say that these events took place just a few days after I had watched all of the It movies. You can see the significance of this in my video about hallucinations, and the subsequent video about synchronicities that seem to connect me to A Nightmare on Elm Street and It movies. Having such a serious experience, I wanted to learn as much as possible about it in order to understand what caused it, and to make sure that this would not happen again. This is how I came across the English term top-down processing. The idea is that a person perceives the world around him, relying on what he already knows in order to interpret new information. According to British psychologist Richard Gregory, the use of sensory information alone is an insufficient form of perceptual processing, as the majority of information, over 90%, is lost between the time new stimuli reach the eye and arrive in the brain, requiring the use of contextual information from prior knowledge and experiences to perceive information properly. I found one comment on Reddit that describes very well my situation, in which I read Tom's message very quickly and inattentively. Osaka Wilson replies, "While you read, your brain is extremely busy with a lot of things, but a few of them are predicting which words come next and filling in the blanks of the story. This is top-down processing. Since you are skimming, you are going faster than you can take it all in, so your brain starts filling in with what it expects to be there." As you can see, the attentiveness plays the major role here. How carefully you try to perceive information. You have probably heard of the Mandela effect. Well, I'm pretty sure that I could experience it firsthand. And it doesn't matter that I alone had a false memory. Well, the phenomenon applies to many people. One person or not, but the principle of operation of this phenomenon is the same for each individual person. When people do not pay enough attention to what they read, see, or hear, they acquire distorted and sometimes false knowledge due to top-down processing of incoming information that fills in the gaps. In my life, I experienced a lot and realized many truths, simple truths of life. And now, due to strange circumstances, perhaps I have also realized the simplicity of the Mandela effect. I will give another example of the Mandela effect from the video game The Legend of Zelda. I heard about it from this video. The Mandela effect has to do with a fish that many people remember as Hylian Loach, when its real name is Hyrule Loach. The question is, why did this happen? The fish is found in a lake called Lake Hylia. Knowing what I know now about top-down processing, it seems logical to me to assume that some players saw or heard this name, Hylia, and when they saw the name of the fish, they read it very quickly and superficially, meaning they quickly flew over it with their eyes, never focusing on the word and its individual letters. At that moment, their brains filled in the gaps, created by their haste and inattention with the information they already had. Hylia, which created the word Hylian watch for them. If they read the name of the fish carefully, they would remember a fish called Hyru watch. Before I end this video, I want to briefly talk about the transposed letter effect. This phenomenon occurs when two letters in a word are swapped to create a new string of letters that forms a new non-word. This is a form of priming because the transposed non-word letter is able to activate the lexical representation of its base word. For an example, I can bring up this meme that shows this effect in action. Also, not all the thoughts mentioned in it are correct, as they say on Wikipedia. This example again points to the fact that our brain fills in the gaps, and in this case errors, with information already available. If you have examples of the Mandela effect, or you have your own opinions about how this phenomenon works, then I would be interested to hear about them in the comments. Thank you for watching and all the best to you.